fancy intro music. Yeah! Woo!
Welcome back to the channel today, and we encourage you join the Discord. We've been pushing a lot lately, but if you want to get access and knowledge of all the stuff happening in this game, other games, and my own life, join that link. We're going to grade Duality today. We're going to take the arduous task of determining whether this was a good arc, a bad arc, the best arc, the worst arc, or somewhere in between. And I feel like this is probably the most controversial arc of all time. Mostly, I find people agree good, bad, terrible, amazing, whatever, and there's a universal agreement. This one, I did not find that as much. Now, I did find that after talking to people, even those who considered this to have bad parts, still came back to one universal truth that I think everybody agrees on. The event store was the best event store we've ever had in Star Trek Fleet Command. So good, in fact, that a lot of the issues that we will talk about have basically been forgotten. And when we talk about officers as a whole, we talk about the collection of events and missions and things that we ended up getting and learning from. I think overall, we'll hold it to the end. We're not even saying, nope, not going to give it to you. I'm going to make you wait to find out what the ranking is. But I can tell you, if you go ahead and like this video right now, special things might happen. So it looks like a thumb, like the video, subscribe. So starting with the officers, and that's the easy way to do because we have the right here. Sela, Honor Guard Worf, Tomalak, Gowron, Martok. We had a slew of Romulan and Klingon officers join the game, which is great because we needed a lot of that. We were really kind of pigeonholed on, two different sets of Federation officers, and then the Borg officers kind of being like the group. That's just really who we used. Now, of course, at higher levels, you use officers like Yuki, Federation, Marcus, Federation. I mean, and occasionally like the Kang, Sharvnik, Gorkon. But even then, you would look at other ones like Lorca, Killy, Federation. And we just felt like as far as Star Trek goes, we were really just kind of plowing around in the wrong direction. We weren't really adding a lot of variety to the game. We were sticking with one theme. And the storylines and the officers that came in really brought in literally life to two new factions, or two factions that have been here. We had the Romulan-Klingon War. Here are your systems where the Romulans invaded. Here are the systems where the Klingons invaded. Ended up getting more in terms of functions and everything and actual features in the game, which is great. But in terms of officers, I really liked them. So Sela coming out right here, your first epic, or technically your second epic that came out, but this is your anti-con officers. This is a good counter to critical builds, which I thought was great. It also helped, further incentivize cloaking, which is a really good deal if you are one of those players who was kind of on the fence, like, do I use cloaking for PvP? What do I actually use it for? This really helped go there. And then Honor Guard Worf took it to another level where, to me, immediately one of the best PvP cards in the game at tier 1. And we talk about the new officers that come in. One of the reasons that I like this officer set so much, and by the way, if you're curious what the officers in this entire arc are getting, a big old A. Whole arc, big A. Yes, I use that A because I felt like it. Why shouldn't I use that A? If you don't recognize that A, then don't worry about it. It's just a fancy A. The officers get an A because they're so good immediately. There's a lot of officers that have come out. You've had to get them to tier 4, tier 5. And even that means officers like Tomalak being the rare exception, but even the captain's ability giving you a piercing buff kind of gives him more value, even though he's a low end officer. But the big thing is he's an anti-faction officer rounding out a set that was incomplete. So we now have multiple Klingon anti-faction officers that will max out at 500%, allowing you to do things like, for example, you're going to fight a Klingon. Let's say there's a D4 coming around. Kang is captain. Tomalak on the side. You go anti-faction, and then mitigation. And watch you just take down D4s like that, just like you would run Marcus, Merrick, Krell versus an Enterprise. You now have that targeting ability that you can run with this here. And I think that was a fantastic addition to the game. Moving on, though, we had the anti-Trinity officers get added. We're obviously missing Baitor and Bael and Lursa, who were part of this month. But we'll talk about those kind of in a second. But the same premise here, Trinities. I like them. I'm not sure how often I'll use them because they have to be really specific. But in terms of how they work, they're as valuable, if not more valuable, than the Trinity officers, especially early on. Low 20s and 30s players who notice a lot of people coming with piercing stats, or you want to raise your mitigation up. Great way to do it with these. And I think there was a good use of them. I think that it was a great job in terms of implementation of taking out important Romulan and Klingon officers. Like, I love that Tomlok made it. I love that Sela made it, and didn't actually mind at all that the House of Duras made it into the Romulan side, because if you study a lot of Star Trek and you are a huge Star Trek fan, you know that's very, very accurate. So story-wise, though, I was honestly not super impressed with the story, but I don't really give a lot of grading or love to story. Story's not really my thing here. The missions, that is, and that's what I'm talking about. There were some complaints that overall you had, level locks, and hey, we couldn't get the missions to like level 33 for the final arc. But overall, I felt like this arc really catered to most players. Usually we'll have an arc, especially if it's 4 months like this one, where we're just sitting there going, oh my God, this is for the whales. And I don't really feel like we had that. I really don't. I feel like this month and really the past 3 months were really an arc that's just kind of catered to the average player. And there's definitely some exceptions to that with Duality Part 4 this month, where we had the overload of Armada events. We even wrapped up yesterday, the last day of the last day of the arc with Armada events. Because we had the Recruit by Al event, which was an SMS that was Armada based. And we complained, yeah, we can't do this. And having basically 13 Armada events as an SMS and just as a run is ridiculously high. And good news for those of you who are listening to this worried about next arc, you will not have as many Armada events. So feedback heard. Now, proper response to that feedback would just be give more Armada directives. But that's also part of what made this good, because if you go back a few months ago, when we're starting Duality, you had those 2,100 rare directives given out to every player. I think that's the strategy they need to work on, because we also in this arc saw the greatest infusion of resources and uncommons that we've ever seen. November and December were the best paying months for Star Trek Fleet Command as a player that has existed in the 3 years this game has been out. Now, January took a step back. I know a few people were frustrated, but the reason it took a step back was because the event store came out. So as a whole, that's okay, because the event store, we all agree, was probably the best ever. Free to play, getting 600,000 event currency completing through SMSs. Even if you only got 500,000, we're used to event stores being 350 to 450. And that's what we talked about at the beginning of this month. Like, hey, if we're given rough estimates based on what old stores have done, this is what you're looking at, 350 to 450. We had people get up to 1 million, depending on where you're at with leaderboards, and if maybe you spend a little bit here and there, but a lot, to where I got a ship, I got a ship skin, I got an officer, and then I took my discovery up a tier and a half. I am almost tier 8, working on tier 9. Y'all know that was a big issue for me. So I ended up deciding, hey, while I don't recommend usually going for stuff like this, I need to catch up because I'm too far behind. So I use that to my advantage. And I think that is probably one of the best things that we've ever had, is the ability to not only get what you need, because I got what I needed first. I got my second Meridian. I got the Meridian skin. I unlocked Jayla. But then I went and also leveled up Beverly. But not only did I do that, then I was able to go a step further and get something that I needed to catch up with, which was fantastic. I think that is something that every player was enjoying and was able to take advantage of. Now, events, all that, great. But then what was the feature? Well, the biggest feature of the month was the amalgam. And the amalgam is going to be a pain point for a lot of people, because they have not yet introduced a free-to-play path, which is a mistake. They should always introduce a free-to-play path as soon as it drops, even if that path takes a month, 2 months. They should never, ever release content that does not have a seeable free-to-play path. And if you agree with that, please comment in the section below. If you agree with that, I'm going to take it a step further. I'm not just trying to plug it for me. Please, if you agree with this, join the Discord, so when we have our feedback rooms, you can post that in the feedback. Please, 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 on their Facebook page, on their Twitter, on the Reddit, make it known. Do not release featured content without a free-to-play path that is seeable immediately. I'm not saying don't make your money. People are going to buy the amalgam type stuff when it comes out day one, spend $800 to max it out, because that's what they do. The people who want a free to play aren't going to spend money on it, whether you make them wait now or wait 6 months. Go ahead and give them the path to see how they can work towards it. People who are going to spend, because they're not going to take the time to wait, 2 months, a month to unlock it. Look at how the Meridian worked. People immediately bought the Meridian, and then they still end up working for their second one and still bought the first one. That's how it is here. We got to have free to play path. But all that aside, I do think that the Meridian was fantastic. And in that same vein, I feel like the amalgam is fantastic. And I feel like there's some people who don't like the amalgam get caught up on the raiding aspect. Sure, if you can't raid, bases that have hundreds of billion or trillion in resources, sure, you're not going to take advantage of these ridiculous high loot draws. The biggest amalgam pull that I've seen so far is 2 billion in one haul. Amazing. You know what? If your server doesn't have that amount of resources, that's fine, because the amalgam still has a fantastic value for you, and that is the ability to use the refinery and step further to use the officer acquisitions to get ship shards and to go ahead and get more of your honor guard wharf. Not to mention if you want to go for cloaking, which I'm not going to go after cloaking for my amalgam, maybe one day, but my focus is on the refinery and how does it work there and how can I progress with that, and then taking that refinery, going to the my officers tab, and then jumping in here. So the fact that they made a specialty ship have dual purpose means a lot to me, because now I can source these rep grinding, because Lord knows I need all of these tokens. I need all of these positive rep tokens. I need all the ship skin shard trackers I can get, and I need more honor guard wharf. So this is a fantastic addition to have a specialty ship that's not a one-trick pony. Like my Discovery that I was talking about upgrading is a one-trick pony. My Meridian is a one-trick pony. Good pony, but one trick. The amalgam is not, and that made it special. So Arc 4 or Part 4 of Duality probably wrapped up and was a little bit rough for a lot of people. That said, I still have to give it this. As a whole, Duality gets an A. And including this past month, Duality Part 2 got an A+ for me because of the resources, the events, and everything. But as a whole, this might be the best arc that I've ever seen in this game. But I want to know your opinion, and if you don't agree, I want to know why in the comment section below. Don't feel like you have to agree with everything Rev Deuce says. Your opinion matters, and the more feedback you provide through content creators such as myself, the better that we can try to make this game. And to do that, help out me grow by liking the video, subscribing, hitting the follow button, and ringing that little bell to know every time I go live and every time a new video comes out. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash that like button. I will be here and live on Twitch later tonight. Live long and prosper. Stay safe for those Space Cowboys. Deuces. That's me. We outie. And as always, y'all are amazing. Thanks again. We'll catch you on the next one.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.